Hey, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to do a super fast, high-yield tour of world geography. Basically, all the stuff you absolutely need to know for your exams, the facts that pop up over and over again.
All right, let's just jump right in with a question that could be straight off an exam paper. I bet you've heard of the Roaring Forties, right? But where exactly in the world are they? Go on, have a think.
So the answer to that question is all tied up in our planet's invisible engine. I'm talking about global winds and currents. This is where we're going to start, because if you get this, a whole lot of other geography just clicks into place.
And there's your answer. It's the Southern Hemisphere. Yep, the Roaring 40s, the Furious 50s, and, get this, the Shrieking 60s. They're all these super powerful westerly winds you'll find south of the equator, just tearing it up at those latitudes. Okay, so you're probably wondering, why the South? What's so special down there? Well, this slide breaks it down beautifully. See, in the Northern Hemisphere, you've got all these huge continents getting in the way, kind of like obstacles. They break up the wind, but down south, it's mostly just wide open ocean. There's nothing to stop those winds, so they can just blow and blow, getting stronger and faster.
Now, it's not all about the big global patterns. For exams, you've got to know the local players too. This table right here is pure gold. These are the classic local winds you just have to memorize. You've got the Chinook in the Rockies, the super hot Sirocco blowing out of the Sahara, Australia's Brickfielder, and that chilly Mistral in Europe. Definitely screenshot this one. All right, let's switch from the air to the water, ocean currents. You've got the famous warm Gulf Stream, sure, but for exams, it's often the cold currents that are key. And check this out, there's a pattern here you need to see. Whenever you have a cold current on the west coast of a continent, like the Canary Current off Africa, you often get a desert, like the Sahara. It's the same story with the Humboldt Current over in South America. It's a huge reason why the Atacama Desert is so incredibly dry. Okay, next up, we're diving deep into the Great Blue, the oceans. I mean, these are the biggest features on our planet, right? Covering more than 70% of the Earth. And what's cool is that each one has its own personality, its own secrets. Here's a classic exam tidbit for you, a real easy one to remember. The Atlantic Ocean? It's the only one with that really clear S shape. If you look at a map, you can see it snake its way right down between the Americas on one side and Europe and Africa on the other. It's unmistakable. And speaking of oceans, let's talk scale. The Pacific? It's just massive. To really get a grip on how big it is, think about this. It covers 1/3 of the entire planet. You could literally take all the continents, all the land, and drop them into the Pacific, and it would still have room to spare. That's just mind-boggling. So we've talked about size. What about depth? Well, for your exams, you gotta know the deepest spots. These are the 3 big ones to lock in your memory. For the Pacific, it's the Mariana Trench. That's the deepest point on the entire planet. For the Atlantic, you've got the Puerto Rico Trench, and in the Indian Ocean, remember the Sunda Trench. Okay, we've been out at sea long enough. Let's head back to dry land and talk about the continents themselves. We're gonna hit the highlights, the highest peaks, the driest of deserts, and those huge, wide open plains. Now this table, this is what we call high yield. It's the highest peak on every single continent. You know Everest in Asia, of course. But do you know Aconcagua in South America? Or Vincent Massif down in Antarctica? This is one of those lists you just have to learn by heart. No way around it. When you think desert, you probably picture hot sand, right? But it's really all about the lack of rain. And it's super important to know the different kinds. For example, you have the Atacama in Chile, which is the driest place on Earth, like, period. And then you have something totally different, the Gobi in Asia, which is a massive cold desert. It just shows you how diverse these places can be.
And we can't forget the world's great grasslands. I mean, these are basically the planet's food bowls, the agricultural heartlands. You've got the prairies in North America, the pampas down in Argentina, and of course the steppes in Ukraine. You've heard that name right, the breadbasket of the world. That's because the soil there is just incredibly fertile.
All right, let's follow the water again, but this time, the rivers. You can think of them as the lifelines of our planet. For thousands of years, this is where civilizations have sprung up, where our greatest cities were built, all along these vital waterways. Okay, here are 2 little geographical quirks that examiners just love to ask about. They're perfect trivia for a test. First, in Africa, you've got the Congo River. It's the only major river in the world that crosses the equator not once, but twice. Then, a little further south, the Limpopo River does the exact same thing with the Tropic of Capricorn. Cool, right?
So you know how when a river meets the sea, it dumps all the sediment it's been carrying? That creates a landform called a delta, and the Mississippi River has one of the most famous and unique deltas in the world. As it flows into the Gulf of Mexico, it spreads out into all these little channels, and it ends up looking exactly like a bird's foot. It's a really classic example. Here's another classic exam question format, matching the capital city to its river. This list here covers some of the absolute must-knows. You've got Paris on the Seine, Rome on the Tiber, Washington, D.C. on the Potomac. These are the pairings that show up again and again. Okay, deep breath, it's time to lock all this stuff in. We're gonna do a quick, final, rapid-fire round of a few more facts. These are the little details that can really make the difference and get you those extra points on exam day. You know, sometimes the best way to remember things is with a silly phrase, a mnemonic. Trust me, they can be absolute lifesavers in an exam. To remember the Great Lakes, in order from west to east, just use this simple phrase you see on the screen. I know, it might sound goofy now, but when you're under pressure, this is the kind of thing that'll stick in your brain. And this is what that little phrase breaks down to. It gives you the perfect west to east order: Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario. See? Super easy way to recall it on the spot.
Pay attention to this one because these 4 straits are absolutely critical. They're what we call choke points in global trade and geography. They're these tiny, narrow passages of water, but they control massive amounts of shipping traffic. You have got to memorize where they are and what bodies of water they connect. It's just non-negotiable.
And for our last little piece of vocab, a fazenda. What's that? Well, it's the term they use in Brazil for one of those huge coffee plantations. Knowing little specific terms like this can really show an examiner that you've got a deeper understanding of regional geography.
Whew, we have covered a ton of ground, and we did it fast, from massive global winds all the way down to a coffee plantation in Brazil. So the final question is really for you. How many of these crucial facts are you going to remember on exam day? This has been The Explainer.